I've heard psychologists and shit say they're so desensitized to it that kids in their 20s are having less sex today than ever before because of the desensitization.
Wow. This is the future, and people better be prepared for it. The sex robot is here, and they're only going to get better. They're going to become so lifelike, and they are going to become so ubiquitous everywhere, where you could buy one. Can you imagine, dude, you imagine being little Johnny and you're like, I'm going to mow lawns so I can buy a sex bot.
And like you're hiding it from your parents and shit. Like you're keeping Lucy in the closet and nobody knows. And then your mom's like fucking coming in, like bringing your laundry. And then, holy shit, what the fuck is this?
Let's get into it, man. Let's get into it. I'm in Sicily right now, just with a location update. I'm back in Sicily, but I was in Poland teaching some jiu-jitsu. And
It looked cold.
It was cool because it was like snow cold, It was it was cool because, and I was in, I had never been to one of the big cities I've been to Warsaw and taught in Warsaw, but this time I was in a city called Wrocław, and it was one of the best cities I've ever been in, man. It looked like this winter wonderland. The city center was, the way a lot of European countries go is you have a city center that's really historic. And in the city center, the architecture, you even have this in New Orleans. New Orleans is really a European city. And in the French Quarter, the architecture is all like 17th century, 18th century, and it's French and it's beautiful. And cool. Then as you get out of the city center, as population booms, grows, what happens is that, and this is the reason I love architecture, because I love history, so I study both wherever I go. And what happens is, as the city grows, I'm sure New York is like this too, but New York's been reinvented. But you have like the city center, and as it grows, the new architecture from the point where the population was at that point is what you see cemented in time. It's like a ring on a tree where it's like, oh, this ring is this year, this ring is this year. And then the further out you go, you might have the brand new golf courses, but they're 20, 30 miles out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You're seeing the timeline in live.
Yeah, you're seeing that timeline. And so in Europe, you have like these city centers in Palermo, where I am right now, same thing. Beautiful architecture in the center of and I'm talking medieval,
Yeah.
And Wrocław had a beautiful city center. And then as you went out, then you get what you typically get in Europe are these like almost fascist like buildings that look like they just rebuild these buildings again and again and again. And I just saw, I was watching an amazing movie called Perfect Days, filmed in Japan, and Japan had some of these same buildings in it. I saw on screen. So anyways, when you get out, it's like, it's not that beautiful. It's just like, cookie cutter fascist condo building after condo building. And, but Wrocław, the city center, was incredible.
A lot of people speak English?
Oh, yeah. In Poland, yes.
That's cool.
Yeah, so it was very easy to navigate. I've been to Warsaw, I liked it, but I really preferred Wrocław. I think coming back to Europe, living in Europe, I'd like to make a yearly trip back to, because, with jiu-jitsu, you meet people, and, the cool thing about jiu-jitsu is that we typically will go and stay with, this is the way I do it when I travel, is I'll stay not in a hotel. I'll just stay with family, and then I really get to know the culture.
Sure.
You're with someone for a week, you see exactly how they live. You see, so that's
the best
cool.
way. That's the best way to see a different country.
Oh yeah. But back in, what's wild is that Poland is, I'm back in Sicily right now, and Sicily is the southernmost part of Europe, and it is the most like old world. most old world. It's wild. And it kind of goes to what we were just saying about sex, is that the norms for sex in Sicily, it's a very, very tight-knit community. And anywhere, I couldn't even imagine dating here. I could not
Because everybody knows each other?
No, because this, Palermo is like, people know each other. It is a very close-knit society, but just because it's like, I often tell people, like, if you see a beautiful woman and you're wherever you are, and you're at the beach or you're at the mall or you're in the city center, if you look 3-4 steps over, she's with her mother.
Yeah.
I don't know if I told you that before, but so you're kind of like, all right, well, we're going to date, but you're going on it's like, and this is exactly the scene in The Godfather. When Michael met in old Sicily, like 1940, 1945, I think he was in Corleone. And he met the woman who's to become his wife, and he liked her and he wanted to take her out on a date. So they went on a date and the whole family came.
Yeah.
And so it's very different.
It's still old school.
Mm-hmm. Whereas I just saw,
there's good and bad to that.
Yeah.
There's good and bad to that,
Yeah, that's where you want your daughters to be raised, and that's where.
Yeah.
But I just saw this, this kind of a little documentary on living in Barcelona, and Barcelona is the southernmost Spanish city, and Spain, and the cultural roots, which is wild, of Italy or Sicily. Sicily at one time was a colony of Spain. So there's a lot of Spanish influence here. If you look at Quattro Conte, where there's this, I think I showed some video of it, where you have that is all Spanish kings up there. That was built at a time that Sicily was a colony. And so you would think that there would be a lot of shared values, but there's not.
Interesting.
Barcelona, the southernmost city, they were talking in the video about how it is like the most sexually open society ever. They're like, no one dates, everyone just hooks up and has sex. And you know what? It's just what it is. Like what I've learned is, like, when I go to new societies, I have to stop my mind from casting judgment. Or else I'm not going to be able to appreciate and understand what's going on around me.
Well, because it's hard to judge, because, like, how, it's like a whole fucking society. So who's to say? You know what I mean? Like,
my
it's
ego.
Not like, yeah,
my ego knows the way things should be.
Sure. I mean, but it's got to be. I mean, it's pretty obvious to me that, like, there's just different operating systems around the world, and like and there isn't one that is superior. I don't think.
No, I mean, what works, what works. I remember a buddy of mine went to a few years, I think it was like 10, 15 years ago, and he went to a beach and went with some friends. He just met this girl and this other, and he's American, and they go to the beach and the girls just start stripping naked. Everybody just gets completely naked. And
what did he do?
He's like, what the? He's just like, I was too freaked out. I couldn't do it. I'm like,
yeah, I wouldn't have done it
either. So, that for them is a norm, right? It's like, and we want to judge that, right? We want to, in our society, we tend to, I think, the roots of American culture we're much more puritanical society. That's the roots. We came from, a puritanical. I did an interesting paper on the roots of gambling and I did it years ago, and it was very illuminating for me. And what I learned was that you had multiple little colonies when America was first founded, and some of them were so strict evangelical. They would burn witches, they do all that nonsense, right? And then some were founded by gambling. like lotteries.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so they were just purely capitalist. And we have those two strains that still thread through our social tapestry.
Like the Puritan versus the capitalist. Yeah. And then it's like they're at odds with each other.
At odds, and then sometimes they mix together, and then sometimes, you know, Elon Musk just saying like Donald Trump like pulling up the Bible and all that, and Elon Musk saying, "Oh, I'm embracing Christian values now." It's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, that's weird.
Are you insane? No, you're not.
That's not real. That's not real.
No. So, anyways, you know, when you go to different society, when I go step into different societies, you know, I try and just go, okay, let's just see how this society works, you know? And so for me, you know, I want to move back to Europe. I'm pretty intent on it. And I'm really deciding, do I want to live in old world Sicily or do I want to live in like new world Spain? You know,
have you been out to Barcelona yet since you've been there? Are you going to go?
I'm going in 3 days.
Okay.
3 or 4 days. So I'm going to Valencia and then I'm going to Barcelona.
How far from where you're at right now?
Dude, 45-minute flight.
Okay.
Yeah, hour flight. So I'm in the Mediterranean, or it's called the Tyrrhenian Sea, but it's the Mediterranean. And we're here, and then we're an island here at the bottom of Italy. And then there's another island called Sardinia, and you fly right over Sardinia, and then you go to Barcelona. You land right there. So, or Valencia. So it's right there. It's like very, very close. And Sardinia is an island next to Sicily, and it's part of Italy also. But this was the kingdom of Sicily, and this was the kingdom of Sardinia. They have very, very different values, different languages, everything. It's so different here. Everything's so different.
You know people up in Spain, or you're going, you're going, you know, you're just going?
I don't know anybody. All right. Just got some jiu-jitsu connections, and so in Barcelona and Valencia. So I'll just make friends and, you know, teach jits and what I always do.
That's cool, man.
And hang out and check it out. So yeah. So yeah, I'm stoked, man. I'm stoked. So yeah, man, it's you know, like we were kind of talking about before we started, you know, I think we're going to be going through with the evolution of technology, you know, clearly I think we're at a point, especially with the flow of information, and you have the book, you know, Sex at Dawn, you know, which really,
what is that?
It's a book in which it's an examination of sexuality, the norms of sexuality throughout time from the dawn of time. And it examines whether, you know, we as primates and as early humans and as hunter-gatherers, were we monogamous or living in 100-person, 120-person tribe, which I think is about what humans usually lived in. Were they just like polyamorous and everyone was having sex? And
what,
you know, that's where the whole term, it takes a village, and humans just raised each other's kids, and you know what I mean?
It's interesting shit, man. And I think that, like, you know, it's like, even now, like you said, like technologically, like when you look at porn, like I think porn is like fucking rewired our brains. I mean, you know, how accessible it is and how like ubiquitous it is. And I think it's created, you know, some real negative effects.
Porn is, in my opinion, is really processed food for the brain. Right?
Yeah.
Without question. It's like, dude, you're not supposed to have the availability and of that kind of a dopamine rush.
Yeah, that you know, that accessible. Yeah, it's definitely not.
We've never had that. Humans have never had anything like that.
No.
You know?
And it's created, I think, especially like, I mean, not even just younger generations. I mean, it's created like this false expectation of like, you're supposed to have access to that amount of sex or that type of sex, you know what I mean? That regularly, you know, that dialed up on demand, you know, when you would want it. And I think that, you know, I think that's definitely creating challenges in relationships.
You think so?
Without a doubt. I mean, because like,
Yeah.
you're being able to pull it up and, meet those needs like that. And then like, now you're in a relationship with a person, and then you're expecting them to, meet your needs just the same way you could get them met, with porn, which is completely unreasonable, unrealistic. I think, people are developing that type of expectation. And I think it's fucked up.
Yeah. That's really interesting. I've never really heard it. I've never really heard of the impact, what they talk about, the impact of it on relationships in that respect. Like
I've heard like
your expectations.
I've heard psychologists and shit say like that, like people like in their 20s, like they're so desensitized to it that like kids in their 20s are having less sex today than ever before because of the desensitization.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
That's really wild.
I've heard several therapists say that same thing.
That's crazy. And and the thing that's wild is that, now the younger generation have only grown up with it, with the accessibility of
they
it.
don't know they don't know a world without it.
If you're
the
if you're a
terminology
kid
and the
you're
whole fucking thing.
Yeah, how do you not dive down into that rabbit hole, Because we're all curious, right? I mean, we're curious. That's part of our genetic makeup.
Yeah, it's wired into our DNA, the need for that.
And then, this goes back to like what we talked about earlier. I just saw this thing where they were, this is the future, and people better be fucking prepared for it. Is the sex robot is here. If you think porn, and they're only going to get better. I mean, they're going to become so lifelike, and they are going to become so ubiquitous everywhere, where you could buy one. Can you imagine, dude, you imagine being little Johnny and you're like, I'm going to mow lawns so that I can buy a sacrifice.
And like you're hiding it from your parents and shit. Like you're keeping Lucy in the closet and like fucking, nobody knows. And then your mom's like fucking coming in, like bringing your laundry. And then, holy shit, what the fuck is this?
Oh my God. It's coming. I mean, I like I said, I don't even think it's going to be, it'll be interesting how it reshapes culture when it becomes that, every technology. I think now, like I saw something like a really good sex bot is like $15,000 or something. When
it's going to get cheaper,
everything becomes cheaper. When it becomes, $150 or, $1,500, whatever,
Yeah. Yeah. When it's the cost of a PlayStation.
Dad comes home. Who's got me? He comes in the room and the kid's stole his fucking sex bot. I mean, the implications are so crazy. They're so crazy. It's so Black Mirror. And it's coming. It. We're on that cusp where we're like, dude, if you can't see where this is going, you are blind.
What's it all about, man?
So I had a friend who spends time living in Japan. He loves Japan. You know what? I think I'm going.
You gotta go.
I think I'm going to go for a month. I think I'm going to go, I'm going to come back to Europe and then head from Europe, get settled in Europe, then fly from Europe to Japan and spend a month in Japan and train, check it all out. See what you know what tipped me, man, is my friend Ruben that I'm staying with here, who runs a gym in Palermo. By the way, a dude from your gym just showed up yesterday.
Yeah, you said that. Was his name Mike?
Oh, yeah, I think so.
Mm-hmm. Mike, yeah.
What's he doing? Yeah. I was like, dude, what are you doing here? He's like, yeah, I usually spend a couple months here every year. I'm like, what?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't
It's
know.
like,
I
yeah,
gotta
I'm here
ask
for a
him.
couple months. I'm like, oh, that's cool.
Young guy, right?
Yeah, young guy.
Good shape.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, yep. That's
It's
it.
so crazy. So
What
crazy.
do he say? What do he say?
He's like, yeah, I roll with Jesse. I'm like, what? I'm like,
That's-
what? Stop. What are you talking about? Because, dude, Sicily, like I said, is very old world. We don't get a whole lot of freaking Americans here.
yeah, sure.
It's very rare that I speak to anybody here who speaks English at all.
That's funny.
Yeah. So it's, yeah, dude. Mm-mm. So I was like, what are you talking about, bro? You train with Jesse? And I was thinking, why didn't you tell me that he was coming over here? I don't know how he knew me and I was going to be in the gym.
I don't know. That's a coincidence, man.
Do you train with him all the time or no?
Yeah, he's a blue belt here. He's really fucking good too. He's a fucking athlete. He's a stud.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, we train with him a
To
lot.
train with him. So anyways, yeah, back to what we were saying. So my friends who owns a gym here, Ruben and his wife Bianca, they went to Japan last year. They spent a month there and they were like, greatest place on earth. And what's wild is that I watched yesterday, I think I watched a video of Anthony Bourdain talking about going to Tokyo. And he was like, it's so life-changing. It was like doing acid the first time I went to Tokyo.
It's a very like different operating system.
Yes. And for him to say that dude who's been everywhere, I was like, yeah, I like it. Put it on my tongue. I'm there, man.
Sign me up.
If it's that crazy. And then, they were kind of explaining it and they're like, you walk around and it's like being in an anime movie. You have all these girls everywhere dressed up as anime figures.
That's
it's
crazy.
It's like the weirdest, most surreal thing. You go into restaurants and the restaurant is as big as a closet. There's like 2 or 3 seats. And so they go in and the culture is so different. Like here in Sicily, when you sit down for dinner, 4 hours. 4 hours. You're just, this is the family's here. You're chilling. Everyone, no one's getting paid with tips. So you just sit down and hang out and talk. And this is like, they're so social here, But in Japan, they were like, dude, you go eat somewhere and you get like one dish and you leave. You're out. And then you go to the next place and then you go to the next, and that's how you eat dinner. I was like, whoa. Okay. But yeah, my roots with Japan run back to when I had a friend who had a sushi bar, and when I was like 17 or 18, and he got me hooked on natto. You know what natto is?
You told me about it.
I love natto. So I'm going to Japan to get me some natto. If anyone out there doesn't know what natto is, look it up, eat it. It's the best thing ever. When you pull it out of the container, it looks like cat puke. It smells like cat puke, and it tastes like cat puke, but it's really good.
That's a commercial.
I don't bullshit about it. My natto superfood, fermented superfood. So cool. Yeah. So anyways, and another friend was explaining, you talk about norms with sex, how, that he was explaining living over there for so long. He's like, dude, every like man like has a wife, and then he has the girlfriend, and the girlfriend and the wife are separate, and there's rules for each. And, that's just the way their society is run. I don't know if wives have, lovers or not. In France, definitely not. Well, wives all have lovers.
They probably do, just not, public.
Or maybe it is public. Maybe like in France where it's like, yeah, everyone has a lover. Who cares? Yeah. What's the hang up? What's wrong with you people?
That is the way that is the way France is.
Yeah. So crazy. What's that?
It's crazy how like we're these little space monkeys just crawling around this rock, fucking making shit up.
Yeah. Well,
causing trouble.
the funny thing is when we make shit up, right? And then all of a sudden we're the generation or two after becomes convinced that this is like the way it has to be. When the person in their grave is probably laughing who made up the
Yep.
rule. You know what I mean? Going,
Yep.
oh, you stupid monkeys, you actually
Yep.
believe that it has to be this way. Oh, did I
Yeah.
fool you?
Yep.
You know?
It's wild. It's totally wild, man. It's totally wild.
Yeah.
And we're so caught up in our own drama.
Oh my God. And how much of it is, of that drama is because we accept and we start to believe that these rules that we have in our head, are again the way things they're like irrefutable and they have to be this way. How much misery do we inflict on our own selves, when
I mean, we seem to just have this need for explanation, like this dire
oh yeah.
need to avoid uncertainty, and we got to have a reason, and we got to have a system, and we got to have precedent, and we got to have people telling us this is the way that it's supposed to be, and we got to feel as though we're going with the current. And it's got to be hardwired in.
I think that the need for certainty is definitely one of the roots of, I don't know why we have it, but it's definitely a root of suffering, and it's one of the reasons that in Zen they study koans, which are paradoxical riddles with no answers, and they study them to get the mind to finally start to understand that you're not going to have an answer. There is no answer to life. There is none. There is no fucking answer. It just is. And
I've always felt that, I've always had that thing in me that was like, there's no answer to this, but yet sensing it and feeling it and then living that way, what I mean, are two different things. I want to be able to live that way. And, it seems like that's the road to peace.
For me, it's a battle. There have been times, especially when I was younger, when that uncertainty caused me great distress, psychic distress. And then I would go and really throw myself into learning about other religions to try and see if I could find an answer. And it was only, which I never did, and which only through intense meditation and psychedelic experiences did I come to see and experience the whole world from a very detached view, where I saw this was my experience. It just is. It's just unfolding, going, and it just is.
It just is. Yeah.
It just is. That's the only answer. And that's it. It just is. And I know you want to achieve your way to, to escaping it or mastering it. There is none of that.
Well, I one of my employees, I was, been having a conversation ongoing now for, a few weeks. And I think he's frustrated with like the results of the election and, the pressures of like social media and stuff. And he was just kind of like talking a lot about like how, I don't want to like, just say that none of this shit matters and ignore it. And then I feel like I'm becoming like a pawn, and there's got to be a way to like make the world better and like get everybody together. And I was just kind of like, not to say that like, people shouldn't try to make the world a better place, but like, you only really have a little bit of agency over your own actions and your own, your own way of living. And, all this stuff that's in the world and like, questions about like, why are the powers that be corrupt, and I was just like, because it just is that way. It's just how it is, how it's always been, and probably how it's always going to be. But at the same time, I feel like you can choose to live outside of it. You can choose to live where it's not, that narrative is just going to play out one way or the other, whether or not you're participating or you're not participating. And if not participating makes you feel better, then I think that's probably a solid answer. Because if the participating in, in that big drama is always making you feel bad, well then, what are you doing?
For me, it's very, 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 very simple on how to make the world a better place. It's as simple as it gets. There's only one rule. Turn the attention inward. Whenever my mind wants to go outward and start to blame something or look at this or bemoan something else, I just am like, oh, my mind is doing it again. Get that dog back onto the curb and look inward. Because when we can achieve the serenity and peace within ourselves, that emanates out and it affects people that we're in contact with. And that's the best way to influence anybody or anything. You're not going to do it any other way. It's never going to. In 2 years, there will be an enormous political backlash against the right wing. And 2 years after that, the pendulum will swing the other way. And then it'll go this way, and then it'll go that way. And if you attach your serenity to this thing externally outside of yourself, to which you have only the control of one boat, or you can go on, what's really, really good is to go on Facebook and just argue with people all day. That accomplishes a lot. It makes you super happy. And you actually make a huge difference in the world.
Yeah. And so many people do it. So many people do it, man. And it makes them fucking
why
miserable.
They do it? Because they don't want to turn inward. And so the ego, the mind, the ego is this false identity that we've created over, our entire lives that fears more than anything else internal scrutiny. Because when we truly scrutinize this false identity, the ego that each of us has, it crumbles. And so much of our suffering is because of this attachment. Oh, my ego what's an ego? An ego is a collection of stories. I'm an American and I'm a liberal, or I'm an American and I'm right wing, and therefore if something on the external, the world outside affects that, then all of a sudden I'm in distress.
Sure.
So the ego wants to continually, it wakes up and goes out, goes out, goes out, goes out. There's a problem. Let me fix him. Let me fix her. Anything but having to fix myself.
Yeah. Yeah, man. It's fucking totally true.
So
totally true.
For me, whenever I catch myself doing that, even in regards to things that we talk about, when I look at the stupidity of humanity in this respect or that respect, or I go to another country, and I'm like, my ego wants to rise up and start casting, well, it should be this way and it shouldn't be. I have to go settle down, turn back inward, and just enjoy the movie that's playing out. That's what we're here for. That's all we're here for. That's all we can do is enjoy the movie.
I need to enjoy the movie more.
Yeah, that's see, and that becomes a really good question, right? One of the focuses that I have right now is on, I was talking to someone about this, about how, in our society, we demonize the word contentment, right? Are you content, right?
Yeah.
You are not supposed to be content in our society. You're supposed to be striving, right? And achieving.
Never enough.
But what is content? Contentment is defined as happiness, right?
Yeah.
What is discontent then? Unhappiness.
I was thinking about, I was writing a little bit this morning, just kind of journaling, and I was thinking about, going across the span of, you know, my relationship and whatnot, and thinking about times before children, and thinking about, like, you know, these vivid memories of like these moments to where being, you know, like on the couch watching TV, doing nothing, and just feeling like I'm exactly where I need to be.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to be anywhere else in the world right now. And
Mm-hmm.
like that feeling of contentment, you know, just thinking to myself, like, I want more of that in my life. You know, I want more of that in my life, of like feeling like, because you're always like, yeah, at least me. I mean, you know, my mind's always somewhere else. I'm always thinking about what I have to do. I'm always thinking about, you know, but like that, those brief moments of bliss that I, you know, have experienced, you know, enough times to know that I want more, um, to where you're just exactly right where you are, present 100%, without any desire or any need to be anywhere else in the world. And like that's it, man. Want more of that.
So I think that it's beautiful when we can identify like what it is that we want. And because I think that you are going through a hard time right now. And so that's helping to crystallize your assessment of like, what do I really want?
Yeah.
Right.
It's a hard
Because
question
other
to answer.
times we get distracted. Our ego gets distracted and we externalize, and we have 20 things that we think we want. I need this car, I need this motorcycle, I need this blah 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 blah. I need to achieve this, I need to start this company, I need to do, you know what I mean? So before you know it, we're so frazzled and we lack focus. And so now I think the most beautiful thing and the most beautiful place we can be is where you are right now, where you're like, I want contentment. Because then it's like, okay, well, what is contentment? How do we achieve contentment? Right? I can tell you right now, it's an inside job.
Yeah.
It's purely within yourself. And that's why I mean, whenever I feel my ego externalizing into the outside world, looking to fix something or being upset about something, I'm like, no. Turn it back in and see, where am I discontent? Where's the discontentment within me that is causing me to look to the outside world as if there's a problem? Because it's always a freaking reflection of our own psyche. If I see a problem with the world, it's because there's an almost equal problem that mirrors that in my psyche that I need to deal with.
Projecting it out.
If I'm at peace, I see the world as peace. If I'm in conflict, I see the world in conflict. There's 8.6 billion people in the world. I can find a group of peaceful people just as quickly as I can find a group of warring, conflicted people. That's why I do not watch the news.
Me neither. I stopped in 2016. Never went back.
That's amazing.
Never went back.
It's brainwashing. You realize it's brainwashing.
Yep.
It's constant. This is a problem, conflict. This is a problem, conflict.
Because I just want you to keep coming back to see what the next problem is.
Yeah,
that's it.
Dude, it's insanity, people that watch the news and then want to talk about wellness and all this and health and growth. And it's like, are you crazy?
Yeah,
You're
definitely.
insane.
They're crazy. They're crazy. I had a friend, you know, and we kind of parted ways, but I had a friend who was fucking glued to Fox News, man. And he would get whipped up into these frenzies, and it would just be obvious. Like, he'd be glued to this fucking thing, listening to it, going down all these rabbit holes, and like he would get whipped up into these frenzies of like absolute fear and anger, and it's just like, how do you not see that this is bad for you, man? Like,
you're eating,
you know,
candy all day for your brain.
Yeah.
This is like porn. News, Fox News, MSNBC, news is outlets are without question porn for politics. It's the same damn thing. Get you in that riled up state, agitated, whether it's left wing, right wing, it doesn't matter. It's the same damn thing. It's
Yeah.
porn, political porn. You're just corrupting your brain and wondering why you're so freaking, yeah, it's wild. It's wild. Yeah. So, like I said, if I'm looking for contentment, and that's kind of like been my journey is like, if I'm seeking something outside, I always question it. I'm always like, okay, why am I feeling this way? Can I get it inside? Why am I feeling this way? Can I get it inside? And it's even affecting me right now when I'm deciding like where I want to live, because in Sicily, I have a gym, I have my friends, I speak the language. And so at least semi speak language. But when I go to Spain, like if I lived in Spain, I wouldn't know people there, but I, meet friends and, I'd start learning Spanish and all that. I don't know. It's a balancing act. I'm like, how much if I examine my personal routine, how much of it is really derived from external, I have a house, I have, you know what I mean? I do yoga,
Sure.
I meditate, I wake up, I cook. I love to cook. I cook in the morning, I cook for lunch, I cook for dinner, very simple life,
And you have a life where you're probably not in a rush a lot, right?
Oh, I don't like to be in a rush.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah. Why?
Like I'm always in a fucking rush.
Really?
I mean,
Yeah, but you're raising kids though, man. You're in
Yeah.
a different, it's a different
That's not fair to say.
situation.
That's not fair to say that I'm always in a rush. I don't, I think I'm always in a rush internally. Internally, I'm always in a rush. I have a lot more control. I have a lot more control over the external.
Yeah.
But internally, I'm always in a rush.
That you can fix. Jesse, I do not like that feeling. I don't like that feeling. Like I try whatever I can to make sure my internal state never feels driven or pushed. And it happens. I'm working. Something comes up. I got a deadline. Someone needs something, but I try and just breathe, let it go, and then I always give the analogy of if I'm driving my car to go 130 miles an hour, I just need to push on the gas. I don't need to have any emotion. And so if I have things I have to do, I can do those things without having the emotion of being rushed.
Yeah.
And so I've tried to really sever that. It doesn't mean, that I'm there all the time, but I always try and I think that this journey is all about internal awareness of our internal state, learning to spot these things quicker.
Yeah.
And go, okay, I'm feeling rushed right now. Detach. It's always about detachment. Detach from that, let it go, and just get the work done anyway. Someone needs 5 emails, they need a legal brief, whatever it is that they need, just get it to them. But I don't need to feel rushed about it, because I'm only going to perform worse,
Yeah, I gotta work more on that, on being able to cut off that emotional connection to, everything.
Well, so I watched this amazing movie, like I said, called Perfect Days. And it's really, really, really great. It's about a guy, it's in Japan, lives in Tokyo, and he cleans toilets. And it's about the simplicity of he wakes up every morning, he folds up his futon, he's an intellectual, he reads Faulkner, reads really high-end books. He has a bunch of cassettes. He listens to jazz. He listens to Lou Reed. He drives his little car. He goes to the bathhouse. He goes and gets ramen, and it's.
Is he married or is he alone?
He's alone. He's alone, and it's a really, really artistic movie, and we don't know too much about him, but he's not what you think he would be. Right? He doesn't need to be in this situation. He has chosen this situation.
Got it.
So that he can find peace and Zen. So in other words, if my internal state of contentment and happiness and joy, which is really, do you know how we find contentment and joy and happiness? It's
No.
very fucking simple. Freedom. We're free.
Yeah.
When we feel free, and what does freedom mean? It means not physical freedom, it means mental freedom. Freedom from attachments. The more attachments we have, the more confined we feel. Even attachments to fear, even attachments to, this is going to happen in the world. And that's an attachment. Let it go. And the more we detach, there comes a point where we just feel like, oh my God, my natural state is joy and happiness.
Yeah.
And so I remember I used to think, why would someone go sit in a cave for 30 years, or whatever? We talked about that, right? That is a waste of a life. Well, that's what it took that person, I think, to sever attachments. They couldn't engage it with the world, right? Well, this guy, for him, he needed to prune back his life until he was doing something so simplistic, like just cleaning toilets, and then having this little life, this very simple life where he took pictures of trees. He would go get the pictures developed. He had an old school camera. He would look at the pictures. He would get the best of them and he would collect them. And you know what I mean? He eliminated attachments to the point, you see this in the movie, to where he was happy. It was a very feel-good, happy movie. And the challenges of him having to continue to sever attachments. So, those, when you say, you need to work on that, yeah, that we're all working on that. That's the journey, identifying where in my mind I'm feeling, we can't see our eyes, and so we can't see our minds, but I have to see through my eyes to see the world, right? Look at
that. Nice.
So, but I also can't see my mind. So I need mirrors to show me where I have attachments, right? Because they're invisible. So you look to where you have pain. If contentment is freedom from attachments and contentment is pure bliss and joy, then we reverse engineer that and we say, okay, well, what is it? The more attachments I have, the more unhappy I'm going to be.
Sure.
So we start with looking at our attachments. Where am I unhappy? Okay, now I got to work on that. Am I unhappy with this every day? Oh, if something is making me unhappy every day, I really need to work on
it. Shit, man. I'm gonna go clean some fucking toilets.
Oh my gosh. There's I don't know if you watch it on Apple TV, Severance. Have you seen it?
No.
It's coming back for season 2. Bro, it's so badass. It's so trippy and weird. And it's the gist of it, I'll tell you, because season 1's already done. But the gist of it is it's a workplace, like, weird show, funny,
yeah,
weird. These people go to work and they basically sever themselves in half psychically. So one part of their life doesn't know about the other part of their life.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So when you go to work, the part of you, the innie that goes to work, that's all we see in the show. But they have an outer life that the person inside the office, has no idea about.
That's so interesting.
So you would go to this company and say, I hate my job and I hate the fact that I have to work. I fucking hate it worse than anything in the world. So I will cut my psyche in half and let this part work if I can sit on the outside and just do nothing but have fun.
Wow.
But they condemn that part of their psyche
That's interesting. I gotta check that out.
To hell.
I gotta check that out. That's an interesting concept.
Super dope. And it's directed by Ben Stiller.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's like top notch, badass show. And season 2 is about to start. So
Gotta check it out.
How about you? Anything you're watching or?
No, not really, man. I'm just, surfing through life right now. trying to stay on the board.